Hi, good evening, everybody. And nice to see you, or at least feel you out there. Thanks for tuning into the Salon. This is our weekly program every Thursday where I interview innovative thinkers and creative firebrands. And we are living through a critical time in American history, the COVID-19 pandemic, all of our inoculations, a vital social justice movement led by Black Lives Matter, and the horrific hate crimes against our Asian American citizens. Our guests are a variety of artists and leaders discussing new ideas, how they're coping with the coronavirus, and making positive social change, as well as showing us little teeny tiny glimmers of hope for the future, because I think we all need and want that right now. My guests this week are Braden Abraham. He's the artistic director of Seattle Repertory Theater, and Linda Cho, Tony Award-winning costume designer. And we're going to start with Braden. Braden Abraham joined Seattle Rep in 2002. He started as an artistic intern, then held several positions on the artistic staff. He served as associate artistic director for 7 years before assuming artistic leadership of the theater in 2014. And during his tenure, he's re-envisioned the new play program, there he is, and initiated Seattle Rep's Public Works. He's an accomplished director, directed many productions for Seattle Rep, and developed plays with many theaters around the country. Hi, Braden.
Hi, Molly.
It's so good to see you. You know, being from the Pacific Northwest, seeing you in Seattle always puts a big smile on my face.
That's great to see you as well. Yeah, I often think of when I see you, I often think of your Alaska roots and your time up there.
Yeah, I'm so curious. What's happening in Seattle right now? Most of the people listening to the show are probably on the East Coast. And I'm really curious about how the city feels, when it might reopen, how the downtown corridor is.
Yeah, well, overall, I think as a city, we've fared fairly well. People have been following the rules, wearing their masks. And as a city, I know that we've ranked pretty high in terms of keeping the COVID infections down, deaths down, and hospitalizations down. So it feels like a safe place, relatively safe place to be. People are definitely cautious, and it's the Seattle Rep is at Seattle Center, which is just north of downtown. And both that area around Seattle Center and the whole downtown area have been, pretty vacant. I mean, it definitely still feels like a ghost town. Although I was down there at the theater a few weeks ago and walked down to Pike Place Market, and there was actually quite a few people out. I felt like I was visiting my city. Like I hadn't been down there in 9 months, and I felt like I was visiting my city, and seeing a lot of people out was really, really heartening. So, I think things are definitely looking up. Like most of the country, I think we feel like we're turning a corner, and as a theater, we're starting to make plans that we actually feel like are going to stick. Getting excited about the possibility of spaces opening up again with the vaccines, on track. And just yesterday, the governor of Washington State opened up, he announced April 15th that they're going to open up vaccines to everyone over the age of 16. So we've been pretty effective in getting the more vulnerable populations vaccinated or on track to, and he felt confident that we can start to really open it up to the rest of the population here starting in the middle of the month. So we're hoping that's going to just lead to things further opening up and people feeling safe and feeling confident about coming back for live events, in the second half of the year and beyond.
So can you do indoor work now? Has the mayor allowed that to happen, or are they waiting? Is it a he or a she? I'm not sure.
Jenny Durkin.
Is she waiting for another few months before opening things up?
The venues we can be open at 50% capacity with, all of the social distancing restrictions in place. Now, of course, for us, that's a little bit complicated because we not only have the city restrictions, but of course we have all of the agreements with our union partners that we're also negotiating. And just, our own model, as I'm sure similar to you, we have to figure out a way to produce work for reduced capacity. So for us, it's not quite there yet. We're not quite able to open up, but we are putting together a plan to reopen and negotiating with all of our partners and making sure that we're making improvements to the facility to make sure that it's safe to reopen. So there's definitely been some steps forward in the city over the last month or so, and we expect that that will continue to open up in the months ahead. And there have been a loosening of restrictions on outdoor performances too. Like, I know you did that great production of Fanny Speak on It.
Yep.
That we're also doing out here eventually. And we were trying to do an outdoor production here last fall, but there was just no way because there was a complete ban on outdoor performance. But that's starting to loosen, and as we see the summer start to come, I think we'll be able to maybe do some stuff outside.
Yeah, we were able to do the Fannie Lou Hamer piece with Ife Butler, who is a big local star here, even though she's from Chicago, and I know she is in Seattle as well.
Yeah.
Just about every part of the country she goes to. She's incredible. She's a true force of nature. So it's going to be
amazing.
Great when
she won
when
Chicagoan of the Year. She won.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, for that performance.
Well done. Well
Yeah.
done. I'm so curious about what you're doing with your program with Public Works.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you're seeking to engage with the community to keep inviting and incorporating people into the theater. And I'm curious, during the pandemic, what's happened to that program? Have you taken anything virtually, or are you just waiting until you reopen again?
Yeah, the Public Works program is such an essential part of our theater now. And this is a program that I brought from New York. We were one of the first theaters around the country to partner with Public Works, Public Theater in New York, who developed this program with Lear de Bassinet. And we were one of just a handful of theaters to bring it outside of New York. And it's really become so essential to who we are. And when this is a program where we go out into the community, we partner with different organizations, we teach classes, they come to the theater and see shows, we have potlucks together, and all of this activity culminates in a massive community production that we do on the stage to start our every season. So it's like 150 people on stage, professional actors with community members and partner arts groups doing a adaptation of a classic into a musical. It's fantastic, and it's such a great way to start our season. And so when the shutdown happened, we were really trying to figure out ways that we could continue that community partnership. And so we did move all of our classes online, and we're able to create that community in a virtual space with the classes. And and I'm kind of getting tingles just thinking about it now, but one of the great events that we were able to pull off over the last 6 months was artistic associate Hattie Andrus directed a virtual production of a kind of condensed version of the 12th Night musical, Public Works musical. And so it was all done on Zoom, but through the fabulous talents of our creative team, we were able to record each individual person on Zoom, and then their voices were mixed. So even though it was in a Zoom format, it really felt like everybody was synchronized singing together. And we created this 45-minute presentation that was just so fantastic and rejuvenating, just to experience some art together. And I think that the online form really accentuates what's great about Public Works, which is that it draws on the power of music and it draws on the power of community. And those are two things that can come across, I think, really well in an online format if you put it together well. And so I was really proud of that production, and it brought a lot of great energy when we needed it really desperately without having productions on stage.
I love that. You know, Braden, being an artistic director, it's a lonely job a lot, you know, because it's a job that's always about solving problems. And it's usually about solving problems either for the theater or for artists. And I'm curious about you as an artist. And what are you desperate to do, or what are you on fire to do in terms of a play or a musical? What do you want to do next?
Oh, yeah. Well, I love that question. Thank you. You know, I'm working, I think I've been thinking a lot about this because we have time to do it, and we're not, you know, as you said, typically we're so on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And I think so much of the joy of our jobs comes from just the pace, but it's also, it can get kind of relentless and you don't have time to think long term about what you want to do. But I have been working on a couple of projects during this time that have been really fun and satisfying. One is I'm working with an artist by the name of Gordon Hempton, who lives in the Pacific Northwest, and for 35 years, he's gone to the world's quietest places, quietest meaning that they're free from human noise. And he records them. And he says that silence isn't the absence of everything, it's the present, or silence isn't the absence of anything, it's the presence of anything, of everything. Which is a beautiful way to do it. And so I'm actually creating an audio piece with him about his career and about his passion for saving these places. He thinks that we need to think about sound the way we think about the way we see natural environments, that the sound of a place can be just as important to us in terms of its restorative properties and our need to be in nature as actually the landscape itself, that the sound is the landscape. And so I've been working with him to create a piece through some interviews and his recordings. And then I'm working on an adaptation of a book called Mr. Dickens and His Carol by a Idaho writer named Samantha Silva. And this originally started as a screenplay, and she then adapted it into a novel after the screenplay came very close to getting made into a movie several times, and she got frustrated with it not being made, and so she wrote it into a novel which was very successful. And then she brought it to me and said, well, what if we made this into a play? And so that's been a really interesting process of going through this story, which started as a screenplay, became a successful novel, and now is becoming a play that's kind of a fictionalized version of how Charles Dickens came up with the idea of Christmas Carol and what was going on in his own life to inspire that work. It's very funny and touching and moving, and of course draws on a story that we all know so well, especially in the theater.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm curious, how did you find this writer? Did you read the book? Did somebody say, oh, this is a writer that you need to meet? How did that happen, Braden?
The agent sent it to me, and it was one of those things, and I know you get a lot of stuff sent to you as well, but it was one of those things where I thought, okay, I'll read the first 20 pages of this novel and see what I think. And it was just so happened to be a snowstorm in Seattle. And, in Seattle, if it snows here, there's so many hills that the whole city shuts down. So I was at home. This is, before the pandemic, and I was at home and stuck here for the day. And I was like, okay, well, I'll start reading this. I ended up reading the whole thing in one sitting. It's about 200 pages or something. And it just gripped me and was so moving. And called the agent the next day, and I said, we have to do something with this. This is extraordinary. So it was like one of those circumstances where it just completely grabbed me.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I look forward to seeing and hearing about both of those projects, Braden. We're already at time, but I have one-minute question for you, which is, what's the biggest glimmer of hope that you're seeing out there right now?
I think just the vaccine and the kind of and also what we're seeing from this new administration in terms of the programs that are going out there, and a reinvestment in America right now on so many different levels, from the arts to the environment to the infrastructure to education. I feel a real creative energy, not only in what's coming up for us in the theater and reopening, but also I feel like that energy is starting to happen in the country on a wide level. And that's just going to raise all boats in terms of, what we have to look forward to going forward.
Beautifully said, Braden. It's so great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Such an honor to be with you. Thanks, Molly.
Take care.
Okay.
See you
later.
soon. Bye-bye. Well said. What a great glimmer of hope. Next is Linda Cho. She's a Tony Award-winning costume designer based in New York City, who's also worked extensively across the US and internationally in theater and opera. In 2014, she won the Tony Award and the Henry Hughes Design Award for a beautiful job she did on the Broadway musical, A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. She also won a bunch of awards, or was nominated for awards for Best Costume Design of the Broadway production of Anastasia. And she was proud to be part of, there she is, Broadway's first all-female creative team for A Lifespan of Effect. Linda's just done a lot in her life. And it's so exciting to see you, Linda. We've been lucky to have Linda at Arena Stage a number of times. You're a designer who understands line and form and color. And there's always a sense of passion and this intense style about your work, Linda. So it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. It's so weird to hear your work described as a body. Like for me, it's random each time. Thank you.
Oh, random.
Well, not random, but like each show, like that there's something cohesive about it. Anyway, less about me.
But there is.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just curious, when you start on a project, Linda, does it start with the ideas of the director? Does it start with the ideas in the play? Does it start with a combination? Does it start with where you are in your life? Does it start with seeing the photographs of the actors that you're going to be designing clothing for? Where does your mind go?
Well, the exciting thing about my work is it's like different every single day, every single time. Each of those scenarios that you've mentioned have been the starting point at some on various projects. Sometimes I just read the script once and go into the meeting. So I just have a general idea and I can just absorb all the information from the director. And there are times when the director will know what color they want the leading lady to wear, and there'll be times when somebody's an open book and says, I don't even know what period this play should be in. And it's all exciting. I mean, whatever conversations begin, there's a million different pistons that can fire and different directions you can go in. So if somebody with a set designer or the lighting designer brings in a piece of research and you're like, aha, that's it. Or you have something exciting that you felt had maybe something to do with the play, and then you show it to the group and they're like, oh yeah, I can riff off that. I can use that image in making an evocative sound, and I can use that in the set design. So different points of departure.
Great. Well, it was so great. I remember the last time you and I worked was on Sovereignty, Mary Catherine Nagel's play.
Yes.
Which you just did beautiful work because it went back and forth in time, and you were able to find a way because it was really ultimately about the Trail of Tears, but it was about the Cherokee people and their relationship to Andrew Jackson. And that was a part of the piece as well as a contemporary story about women and abuse in Indian country, and kept going back and forth in time. And you were able to find a way to give it a sense of history, at the same time that every time they came out, they were wearing a part of something from, 200 years before to something contemporary. How did that come for you?
For me, my job is about storytelling. So whatever clues I can give the audience or to help tell that story of the individuals or what the big picture is. I mean, that to me is so exciting and tells me exactly what the project needs. Like if it is something that jumps between two periods, they're finding the link between the two is, I will find it and then I will have to illustrate it. And it is clear to me what needs to be done. And that's exciting. And, another thing about sovereignty, which I love and what I love about Arena is, just the story. I was just really excited and proud to be telling this story. I think so often, we don't hear the stories of marginalized voices. So being able to participate and help tell this story, it not only becomes, work. Luckily for me, work is my passion, but when you get to do something that speaks to you, to your soul, and you feel like your work is contributing. I'm not a doctor. I'm not like healing people or anything, but to me, this is important work. And anyway, bravo to you for that, doing that play to Arena Stage for your mission of American, like celebrating American voices.
Thanks so much, Linda. It was fascinating to me to talk to audience members who Washington, D.C., very, very smart audience. And people would come in and they'd say, I feel ignorant about Native Americans. I feel ignorant about all of the broken treaties. And some people called me after the show and said, I thought that the play was not truthful. I went home and I looked everything up and it was. And I just thought, that you're right, Linda, that's one of the other gifts that we can give as theater makers is open up these wells of stories of marginalized people or people who have not had a spotlight shown on them in a particular way. And that's always so exciting to be able to do.
And that I too learned in the process. I learned so much about American history. I'm Canadian. Actually, I've just applied for my American citizenship, and I've got through step one. So I was hoping to get it before this past election, presidential election, but luckily that all worked out okay. But want to be ready for the next.
You'll be able to vote in the next. Well, it'll be great to have you as a citizen of the United States, Linda. I'm curious about the environmental impact of your works on your design. This whole area of zero waste that's coming up, environmentally responsible fashion. It's kind of a hot button in the fashion world. And does it apply to theatrical design? Or in theatrical design, are we always thinking about environmental impact and reusing everything?
When I looked at the work of, it was this past spring, I was looking at works of young students that were graduating from graduate programs, and somebody that was an important factor in their work of resources that are found, and I thought that was a really exciting part of who she is as a designer and what she hoped to accomplish. I think it is a harder road because it will be a deeper dive. It is a bigger expectation from your colleagues, from the costume shops you work with, to find sustainable resources. But it's not even something, quite frankly, I've been working 25 years that even occurred to me to think about. So it was great to hear that from the student. It is difficult, I think, to achieve some costumes in some circumstances, not impossible. But one of the factors is, for regional theater, for instance, you get about 3 weeks in production in the costume shop. You get the shop's time before you hit the stage. So it's tricky in that respect, because it is a more difficult way of sourcing like fabrics and shoes and all those kind of things. But I'm glad you brought it up. It is something new to me. And hopefully I'll be able to integrate some of those practices moving forward.
Linda, you mentioned costume shops. What makes a great costume shop for a costume designer? What do you need? Because our audience that are listening today may not be aware of tailors and different people that work in costume shops. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So when you see a costume on stage, there are things to consider from head to toe. So there are wig makers, makeup designers, crafts people, there are artisans who just do distressing, there's tailors who do menswear, there's dressmakers who do women's wear, there are first hands who are the right hand person who cuts out the fabric, and there are stitchers who put it together, there are shoemakers, there are jewelry makers. I mean, there are so many people, and in a theater like Arena Stage, the craftsperson does many of those, like hat making and jewelry making, and wardrobe will help with hair and makeup and all that kind of thing. For me, not only in the costume shop, but especially in the costume shop, but it's about the people. If somebody asks me, oh, where's your favorite place to work? It's not about like how big the theater is and how much money was spent on the budget, or how beautiful the resources were, how great my housing was. It's always about the people I get to work with. So working with people who just have the fire for the work, it's somebody who's just excited. They'll see your sketch and say, oh my God, this is so exciting. I'm looking forward to making this. I thought about this. What if we did it this way? And maybe they have their own ideas about how to do something and bring that in. So like, I think it's people with fire, people who are excited about the work, just as I am. That to me is my favorite shops. Not to, that you can go into a shop where they're like, well, you're the designer. What do you want? How do you want these stitches? How many beads do you want across the chest? And it becomes a little more sausage making. I want to make a whole meal with somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Linda, we just have a few minutes left, but I would love it if you would talk about what you're working on now and what you're excited about.
I am so excited to share with you. Actually, when you were talking with Braden and he was saying that he worked on a 12th Night musical, I too have been with my husband wanting to create a something that we can give to middle school and high school students. And we have come up with a 12th Night in colonial New York, but reconceived in a world where Native Americans are the supreme culture of the time. So Olivia and Orsino are Native American. The Malvolio is like a white Puritan. And then they have embraced different cultures that have come in. So like the sea captain and Fabian are Asian, and Sebastian and Viola and Antonio are Black. So it becomes this idealized New York City. And actually, I have it right here. Wait. So this is my Statue of Liberty. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes.
But, so she's holding, I learned about Native American gardening. They have the Three Sisters where they plant a corn that peas will grow up on the corn stalk, and then squash that keeps away the weeds around the base. So like this harmonious thing. So she's holding that, and then there's an eagle at the top there, and it's based on I got to buy a little Statue of Liberty, so it's the same proportions and it's the same pose. But so this is part of the set, and then this is my Olivia. This is her first sketch when she's depressed and mourning her brother. Is a little more somber, and then when she falls in love, it's bright and colorful. And because we're going to build, my husband's doing the set and I'm doing costumes. Oh, it's small. So this is Olivia.
Oh, I love it.
And it was really fun. I never get to do things like this, like bead and sculpt. And I just finished Malvolio's faces. So this one is his dour face.
love that.
And then this hasn't been painted yet. This is his sneering smile when he's cross-gartered. So yeah, I mean, it's just filled our days with creativity, and it's been exciting to do it with my husband, and we're great collaborators. There've been a few, what's great is you're just unfiltered. You're like, no, that's a terrible idea. It's like the kind of thing you can never say in out in the world. But my husband's there. My husband wants to show you.
Is he
the
going to
door.
say, let me see.
This is the doorway.
Oh my God. Oh, it's
into it.
beautiful.
So
Everything is so gorgeous. I want to see this production.
I'll send you the teaser and stuff. So my hope, like depending on how long COVID goes for, that maybe we could. It was actually based on the Théâtre de la Mode, which during after World War II, there were restrictions on all kinds of materials and fabrics and whatnot. And normally the Parisian fashion houses would send. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can see you now.
Copies of their fashion to North America, but because of the fabric restrictions, they would send these little 14-inch dolls. And so this was inspired by that. We're sort of restricted in what we can make, and I'm restricted in actor access. So this is our inspiration for it.
I love it.
Yay.
Linda, it was so great to see you.
You too,
I
Molly.
always love talking to you and hearing your ideas. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course. My great
Much
pleasure.
love to you. Much love to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
My guest next week will be Avania Stock, who is a costume designer who arena audiences will know from several different productions, and Marcus Humman, who is the composer working with Arena on the upcoming premiere of American Prophet about Frederick Douglass. Tonight's gift of art, we have something that's going on called Arena Riffs, and we have commissioned 3 different composers. And this first riff was with the Banksons, My Heart is Heavy, or My Grief is Heavy. And the second one is just launched yesterday, and it's Samiani 24 and his wonderful group of artists. It's called the Freewheeling Insurgents. And just take a look at, it's just a 2-minute sizzle reel. You'll see why.
I'm a director. Part of a theater crew called The Insurgents. Each one of them uncommonly gifted. Each one aching for revolution of one kind or another.
It's like we're living in the dark ages. We got theaters with dark stages, immigrant babies in cages, folks unemployed with no wages. And if your skin is black, it's still a fact. You might get shot in the back, and that's our pill to swallow like a platinum aphrodisiac. But the fact is, the blackest of our countrymen are used for target practice, and it's just a classic tactic to fool us like Vegas magic and make us think that we're tragic. But our blessings are gigantic, and they simply cannot stand it. For real, yo.
We are made in God's image, so they try to pillage the treasures that reside inside our souls, bodies, and minds. But our values intertwine with the fate of humankind. So wheel off and rewind and be creative with your time.